can't wait to get Roy's assessment of the.
We're gonna get it at the top of the show.
4.
We're gonna get it at the top.
3, 2, 1. You're on the air.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Wednesday night edition on the Fighting Boys Network. We have a chance tonight to talk about so many different topics in the world of sports. And we're going to start off by going right to Tampa tonight. We're not going to have any dedication. We're going to go right to the sports picture. Roy Cummings is waiting down there. The top 3 stories that we were chatting about before Roy got on. The Knicks are changing coaches. A surprise there. Belichick may go down to $1 million buyout in North Carolina. It looks like they're tired of all the things that have gone on there. We'll chat about that. And, of course, Saquon with the Philadelphia Eagles has made a couple of comments this week that have shocked Roger Hendler in Atlanta. So, Roger, we'll start off with you tonight rather than Roy because you got the Saquon story, and then we'll go to the Knicks, and then we'll go to Belichick.
Well, Saquon Barkley, Frank had one story which was great. They've converted Geno's Steaks in South Philadelphia to Saquon's Steaks for a month, and the email is Saquon, not Pat's or Geno's Steaks. That's number one. And he was there making serving the customers and everything. So he's right in Philly. I tell you, he found his home, and didn't grow up that far away. That's number one. Number two is he made a statement, and I saw it was in the New York Post, that he surprised everybody with a statement that he may retire out of nowhere. So you don't know whether this is just, because you're getting ready for camp and, you want to give the media some food for thought and nuggets or what. But anyway, that was one that I saw. And then Frank had told us about the Saquon at Geno's, which I know you're not that familiar with Geno and Pat's, in South Philly, but
me?
They're legends.
Wait, whoa! You talking about me?
Yeah, I'm talking about you. Yeah, you're a Chicago, Florida guy.
I can't remember the last time I went to Philadelphia and didn't go to Geno's or Pat's.
Okay, well, there you go. I'm wrong.
I know people think that there's something better than Geno's and Pat's, and I know better than that.
Whoa.
Well, Chicago pizza is a little bit different than Philadelphia pizza. But go to number 2, Roger.
Well, the other one we were talking about was Belichick and the girlfriend, Roy. And as I understand the contract, if he was to buy out of the contract at UNC, he had to pay them $10 million. If he did it from after June 1st, he only has to pay the university $1 million. And I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but there's just a lot of speculation that he will not coach a game at North Carolina. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Look, I think he's going to coach. I think he wants to coach. I think it's what he does. I think he's clearly has a passion for it. I think he's anxious to do it. The situation in college is a lot like it used to be in the NFL. It's more the other way. I mean, you see coaches, leaving college football who've been traditionally involved in it. And I think, a guy like Bill Belichick can now go into the college football atmosphere and thrive because he's used to it. He's used to, losing a dozen players a year through free agency or something like that, which is what the portal is in essence. So, look, here's the deal. If what we believe we know about the contract is accurate, well, then the date has passed, and the buyout is, now $10 million. I don't think they're going to pay him $10 million.
No. Now it's one. According to what the article says, he has to pay them. Okay, if he got out of it, and now it's only $1 million. That's the way it's written. But I think it's like you said. It's just the reverse. about he would get paid. Now they said as of June 1st, it's $1 million.
Yeah, they dropped it on Sunday.
Well, here's the thing. Most college programs, North Carolina might be a little bit different, especially when it comes to football. But most college programs don't bat an eye at whatever the buyouts are for their coaches. Look, is it easier now for North Carolina to buy him out? I suppose, but don't you think that North Carolina is getting exactly what it wanted to get so far before any snap, anybody takes a snap in anger on that campus? Don't you think they're getting exactly what they wanted out of this deal? I mean, they're getting all kinds of publicity. Look, no one would be paying any attention whatsoever to North Carolina football, even if they got the quarterback from Notre Dame in the transfer portal, even if they got the running back from Alabama or a receiver from Georgia. No one would be paying any attention to North Carolina, even at football, even if that were going on. But the fact that Bill Belichick is there has brought all kinds of attention. And I'm one of those believers, well, not necessarily totally believe in it, but there's no such thing as bad publicity. Anytime they're talking about you, it's good for your program. And I think that's the case right now. It's good for the program in North Carolina that people are talking about it because it's bringing attention. That's going to, and if he can win, and look, we're in an environment now where, you've got the SEC and the Big Ten. And if you're not in the SEC or the Big Ten, well, you're kind of out of luck almost in terms of getting into a national championship, playoff tournament. So if Belichick over the next 2-3 years can, establish some kind of program at North Carolina that's viable, more viable than it's ever been, and get people to pay attention, much like what happened in Colorado with
Prime.
coach there, with prime time, and so to me, I think that right now North Carolina is getting everything it wants out of this. It makes no sense to me at all to buy out Belichick out of the deal at this point. You're into the spring meetings now, everything else at a time when these kids, look, we're a month away from, kids coming back to school and starting training camps there. So I think it's a little late for something like that to happen. I think Belichick is, I think he's all in. And I think he's going to be there for 2 or 3 years. And I think North Carolina is going to continue to benefit, probably on the field as much as they are right now off the field.
Going to have to challenge Clemson and, take the ACC and then become a national school again as far as football is concerned.
Don, I'm glad you mentioned that because here's what I think. I think Bill Belichick is far more suited for the college football system as it is right now than Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney was very hesitant. It wasn't until last year that he finally agreed, okay, I guess I got to get into this portal thing. I got to start, recruiting kids to come here that are at other schools. He didn't want to do that. And let's face it, Clemson was hurt a little bit as a result of it. And now that they're going to get into it, I think they'll be fine. But, again, this is what I'm saying when I say that I think coaches like Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, these type of coaches that really aren't accustomed to this system of free agency that college football is dealing with now, I think they're going to have a harder time adjusting to the current atmosphere and the current system than a guy like Belichick. I think a guy like Belichick can make that transition seamlessly, whereas clearly Dabo Swinney's already had some issues with it. And I think it was part of the reason that Nick Saban decided to get out of college football too. So, I see what you're saying. Yes, on the field they have to. He's got to prove he's better than not just Clemson, but Florida State and a few others too. But would you put that past Bill Belichick? I mean, his reputation's kind of on the line now. I think he prides himself on that reputation. I think he hears the talk out there that it was. He had a nice program at New England, but it was all about Brady. And now he's got a chance to prove that, hey, he really is a darn good football coach. So we'll see. But I think the system is perfect for him. I think he'll adjust just fine. I think he'll coach and probably make that team at least a viable ACC contender. I don't know if they'll be an actual playoff contender, but they'll make them a team that's viable in the ACC.
Well, the new formula, they go to 16 rather than what they're doing right now. It's a much better system, and they can't do it this year. They have to wait a couple of years before they can actually install it. They're going to be voting on that, this summer. But, okay, we got Saquon out of the way. We've got Belichick out of the way, and the biggest surprise
We never
to
really
me.
talked about Saquon, though.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was waiting for somebody to throw a question at me, but I mean, I assume you guys are all worked up about the fact that he said, I may wake up tomorrow and retire, or maybe 4 years from now.
Yeah, I'd take the money myself. If he feels like he should retire, that's his prerogative. He just got married, just had a baby. Maybe he wants to spend more time in a family situation and not be as aggressively in the National Football League. There are a lot of options here, for him, but there's also a lot of money on the table. So, what do you think? Do you think he's going to take the money, or do you think he's going to step back?
I think he's going to take the middle road here. I think he's going to play for a couple more years, taking as much money as he can. Look, he's playing behind a really good offensive line. I don't think he minds winning maybe another Super Bowl. So I think he plays for another year or two. But I would say the more success that he and the Eagles have, the greater the chances are of him going ahead and retiring. Because, look, when you've achieved everything you want to achieve in the game, including, making enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your life and have your family live comfortably for the rest of your life, which he's done, you certainly could make the argument that not much left to play for, especially in a sport like that where, your lifespan, your career time, your time in the league is limited anyway. It's probably 4, 5, 6 years to begin with. And if you shave a couple off of that and say, hey, I won a Super Bowl, I was a leading running back, made good money, you can see why he would absolutely take the money and run. But I still think I think he's going to play this year, and I'll be surprised if he doesn't play for at least 2 more years. But at least he's being honest with everybody.
I'll buy this year 100%. Roger, any encore on that before we make a next switch?
No, I agree with Roy. I think it might not be 4 years, but I think it'll probably be midstream, especially if the Eagles can keep the offensive line intact pretty much. And they're competing for Super Bowl or, to do well during the playoffs.
The one thing we're missing.
Let's switch to topic number 3. Tubro has just been let go by the New York Knicks, first coach to take a team into the NBA Eastern Conference Finals in 20 years. Not good enough. The Knicks have relieved him of his duties as head coach. But the surprise here is, gentlemen, and I can't still in my wildest dreams believe it. Roger, who do you think they want to get as the new coach of the Knicks?
Well, Frank said that looks like Jay Wright's in the running. Well, that doesn't surprise me. But then I read that Dan Hurley's in the running. So that I'll leave it there because I don't understand the Knicks. I think they're a problem organization. This is the first time, what you said, in 20 years that they really did anything in the playoffs. And Thibodeau is let go, and he's the one that really brought them up and did a great job. And then they dump him. So it's ridiculous.
And at the same time, I can see Dan because he was in Connecticut, and they tried very, very hard last year to get him to come into the NBA. They offer him all kinds of money. So I would imagine that with his close relationship with the Knicks, he would certainly be a leading candidate. But to go to Villanova, and to me, he's got the best job in America. He's on the panel. He's doing the CBS. I think he's going to be the guy that's going to take over on the floor for the NCAA Final Four. I think he's going to do a lot of things on CBS, and I'd be shocked if he takes a job with the New York Knicks. Roy?
Me too.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I look. It just boggles the mind. I'll say what everybody's saying, which is, how do you fire a coach who got you to the playoffs? Had the most successful season in what, 2 decades, back-to-back 50-win seasons, with what people who follow the game closely, I do not, call a flawed roster. They sold a lot of high-level assets. Or moved a lot of high-level assets to ensure that they had a top 5 that was capable of getting into the playoffs and going deep into the playoffs. They achieved that, but there isn't much after the top 5. So whoever comes to coach there doesn't have much to work with. He's got a top 5, but again, injuries are plentiful in the NBA. The bodies just can't take the pounding sometimes, and they're one injury away from missing the playoffs, I would say. So. I don't know that there's a bunch of people really lining up to be that coach, to be the coach of the Knicks. The guy they probably should have fired was the general manager, but we'll see. All the names are out there, and they'll find somebody who's anxious to take the job. But at the end of the day, it just boggles the mind and makes you wonder, what in the world are they thinking there in New York? Because again, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, you see every it's just rare these days, and it's been rare for a while that anybody just sticks with what's working. And I don't know. They say they want to go in a different direction. I guess the direction they want to go to is south in the standings, because they certainly don't want to stay at the top, or else they would have kept the coach.
All right, well, we touched on those 3 topics. Now we'll go to one that's taking place. Of course, the NBA playoffs don't start until tomorrow night, but 45 minutes from right now, the National Hockey League starts their playoffs, and Edmonton rolled through, ready to go. It's going to be interesting. Florida and Edmonton. Roger, any comment before our Florida expert comes in? Roy's got the hockey right on top of his end of his tongue, but we'll start with you this time.
Well, I think it should probably be a great Stanley Cup playoffs. I hope so, but I really believe it will. And I think Florida will win. I've just been really impressed with them. I know Roy's talked about them all season, and everything that I've seen of them through the playoffs up until now has been nothing but impressive. So that's my opinion. Florida in 6.
Roy, yeah, it's hard to argue with that, Roger. I mean, I think, Florida in 6 sounds about right. But you know what? I'm pushing for Edmonton in 7. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, good. Capable. I think they're capable of doing it because, look, Edmonton is a different team. They have learned through their journey through the Stanley Cup playoffs the last 2-3 years that you have to be more than just a high energy, kind of run and gun, speed oriented finesse hockey team. I mean, they have done a superb job in the last, throughout these playoffs, of limiting other teams' scoring chances, limiting other teams' scoring opportunities, shots on goal. They almost have to, because their goaltender is adequate. Stuart Skinner is he's not one of the top goaltenders in the league. He has moments where, he looks great. He also has moments where he looks like he doesn't belong on the ice. Sergei Bobrovsky's going to have some of those moments too, both of them, but he can have more of those moments where he looks like he's the best goaltender in the league. And Edmonton can make you, look like the latter, one of those goalies that doesn't belong in the league in a hurry. So, we'll see how it goes. But, look, I think this is a really good matchup. And it's a different matchup than it was a year ago. A year ago, Edmonton wasn't quite as far along in this development of who they need to be in order to go deep into the playoffs, because they just didn't have the grit and the grind and the ability to kind of shut other teams down. They're focusing on that a lot more. And the thing that's difficult for opponents is their bottom 3 lines after the top line, certainly the last 2 lines, will do that to you. They will shut you down. But you're getting buy-in now from Leon Draisaitl and even Connor McDavid in those instances too. And the thing that Edmonton can do that not too many teams can, Florida can do it a little bit, but Edmonton at any point can throw Draisaitl, McDavid,
Hello?
and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins out there, all on the same line.
Hello?
You put Evander Kane out there, and they can hurt you. They can hurt you in a hurry, and that's what they'll do after they kill a penalty too. So. So watch for that. But this is a different matchup because Edmonton is a different type of team.
Don?
Yeah, hold on. Don somehow got off. I'll put him right back on.
Yeah. Well,
Go ahead, Don.
I think it'll be a great series. That's why I said that. And anything can happen. I mean, if the goaltenders is really hot, it can change the complex of the game. Let's face it.
Well, I think the Lightning figured that out. They had great goaltending that went against them, and they went back quickly back home. to Sarasota, sorry, to Tampa. So I got to go with Messier. I agree with it. Your early part of your statement, I missed the end because we dropped out for a second, Roy. But I have to go with Messier. And he said after the game, when they finally set the tone for Edmonton to come in for the championship round, he said they got to play the first game. So much depends on the very first game that they can't do what they did last year and go to sleep saying we're going to make it up in the next six. It's not going to happen.
No, it won't. And I don't think that. Again, that's what I was saying when you got when you fell off the call there, Don, was that what you're seeing, what you'll see. What you should see, what we've seen, throughout these playoffs, is a different Edmonton team, a team that can play a more defensive-oriented style when it needs to, and it will need to in this series for sure. And then it can also, throw the firepower at you, which they'll do after any power play or penalty kill rather that they're out there for. They'll throw Draisaitl, McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, or Evander Kane or Perry out there, all on the same line, and just give you a wave of offense. But they can shut down a team defensively now. They figured out how to do that, and everybody's buying into it. And that's what makes this team different, and what's why I think that Edmonton has the ability to go 6-7 games and win this series against Florida. You're right. Tampa didn't have it. For some reason, they couldn't quite muster that level of play. But I think Edmonton can, and I think they know that they have to do it right from the start. My guess is that what you'll see Edmonton do is something similar to what Carolina did in its playoffs. Is it'll basically take the standpoint of, we're not going to be aggressive. We're gonna be smart. We're gonna play smart. We're gonna shut down. The number one thing is going to be to shut down Florida defensively, frustrate them through the neutral zone and into their offensive end, and then try to take advantage of turnovers and giveaways, and capitalize on offensive opportunities instead of trying to just create them and force them. I'll be surprised if we don't see that, but I think that's what the game plan is going to be, because I think that's what it has to be. And again, this is something that Edmonton can do now, which 3 years ago for sure they couldn't. Halfway through last year, they probably couldn't. And as they got into the playoffs against Florida last year, they were still struggling to figure it out. But with their new coach, they figured it out this year, and it's why they're in the finals again.
Roger, any wrap up on that one?
No, I said to Roy, I could see Edmonton winning. I just, my feeling after watching both teams, that I think Florida really will. It looks great, and I think they'll win in 6. That's all.
And Roger, I don't disagree with you. I mean, if I was forced to put a bet on it, I'd probably say Florida in 6 or 7. But I just think Edmonton's more capable of winning this series, and I'd like to see them do it. Because you know what, I'd like to see Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, and I'd like to see them win a cup. I really would.
Well, I would like to see them win a cup, too.
Let's switch over to baseball momentarily. And, Roger, we saw the Phillies lose 4 games in a row for the second time this year. They bounced back very quickly last night and got a very, very big win to stymie that losing streak.
Yeah, they sure did, because it did not look good. They did not look good against the Braves in that third game. They lost it, and then they got swept by Milwaukee, including, I think it was 17-7. In Saturday, and then at least it was a decent game on Sunday. But they do have some issues, and they have made 2 changes. They brought up 2 of their top minor leaguers from Lehigh Valley. Mick Abel's back. I think he's pitching tonight. And I forget the other one. I wasn't that familiar with him. But they're still holding Spencer on the side. He's pitching, building it up to that he'll pitch 6 innings at Lehigh Valley in the near term. And it's still the same plan, July, for him to come up and join the rotation.
Fellas, we had a great weekend with chances of teams playing one another. Yankees, of course, playing the Dodgers, and then the Mets came right in behind them, and they're playing the Dodgers. 2 great games. First of all, the Mets won game 1, 4-3, and last night went 10, and the Mets lost it. But they gave the Dodgers everything they could handle. That was very interesting. So the 2 front runners, the Yankees in the American League and the Dodgers in the National League, with teams like the Mets and the Cubs and Detroit trying to challenge in. I don't know if you had a chance to see last night's game with the Mets, but it was a very, very interesting game all the way through.
Oh, yeah, 2 great series, no doubt about that. I mean, my gosh, for the people in L.A., it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, that's talk about marking something on your calendar. If you want to go see the Dodgers, or if you have the opportunity, the last week was the time to go buy tickets, see them against the Yankees and then against the Mets. That's in back-to-back series. That's special. But you know what was really special to me about the series against the Yankees was, I mean, come on, guys. I'm sure we've all, well, Don, you were there, but, I wasn't there to see Babe Ruth, but, play or Lou Gehrig. But I mean, who
I gave him his number 3.
Fan, right, exactly. What baseball fan wouldn't have wanted to see, Walter Johnson against Babe Ruth or Gehrig or, any of the greats, play each other? I mean, look, we all did have the opportunity to see, Ernie Banks against Tank Aaron on the same field, and Frank Robinson, and against certain guys. I mean, we saw that. We were fortunate to see that. But for the current baseball fans, the young baseball fans, the opportunity was there to see Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. I mean, these guys are going to the Hall of Fame. And, to see all those guys in the same series and see the way they performed was just outstanding. I mean, Ohtani hit, 2-3 homers in the series. Judge hit a couple homers in the series. I mean, everything you would want from that Yankees series, Yankees-Dodgers series, you got. And we're kind of getting the same right now so far through the Mets series as well, with 2 games to go, one tonight and then tomorrow afternoon. So if you're a baseball fan, these are the games that you buy Apple TV for, and that you buy the baseball package for, and if you can do it, you tape them and you watch them again, a day later if you have to, because it's great baseball.
Just a sidebar on that I'd like, both of you to comment on this. The Phillies, let's go to the Dodgers first. The Dodgers are behind, what was the score? 18-2, 17-2. As everybody knows, when you go to Dodger Stadium, you got to wait till almost the end of the first inning before everybody gets in. I don't know what they're doing, whether it's traffic or why. They have a lot of excuses to why they don't get there. But the score was 18-2, and by the time it was 18-2 in the 7th inning, everybody behind home plate was gone. I mean, there were maybe 20 people left, 15, 20 people left in there, including Mary Hart and her husband, who were every game. Now you go to Philly, and they're behind 17-2. Going into the 9th inning, they did score 5 runs and make it 17-7 at the end. Yeah. Everybody's at Citizens Bank Park, and they're behind 18-2. I mean, the contrast in how people view sports in L.A. as opposed to how people enjoy sports in Philadelphia is unbelievable.
There's more to do in L.A. The night is young.
But they don't have Geno's and Pats.
They don't have Geno's and Pats. If they did, people would stay. No, I see your point. Hey, look, I'm one of those guys. I have never left a sporting event early. In fact, I'm one of those who lingers well after it's over. Certainly did that anytime I went to Wrigley Field. Whenever I go to Wrigley Field, man, I can't get enough of it. And I literally stay until they start to kick you out because I want to soak up as much of that stadium and that atmosphere as I can. So, but I've always been that way, no matter what the sport is. I'm an early arrival and a late departure. When if it's me and people who are like-minded. So I don't get it. I say that because again, this was a series where anything could happen. I mean, you got Hall of Famers on both sides, and not just one or two, but maybe three or four, and so it was an opportunity. I mean, just a rare opportunity to see two of the best teams in the history of baseball face each other in the regular season, and the fact that it was a repeat of last year's World Series. Hey, nothing wrong with that. So I'm locked in, but I see what you're saying about
Roy.
A big difference.
Roy, I commend you for your stats on coming and going, and possibly could you explain that to? Well, it's the third quarter. I'm out of here, boys.
No, only Tom LeMaine could do the imitation on that.
Only guy I ever knew was Phil Rizzuto. He worked with Bill White in the seventh inning. He said, "I got to beat the traffic," and he'd head for the exit. But I mean, it was just amazing to watch. I mean, I don't know if you stayed up late enough to watch it, but I mean, I'm telling you, I looked there and Mary Hart and her husband there every game. They don't miss any games. And by the seventh inning, I mean, there were nothing but blank seats right there. And it just amazed me as the way they.
My guess is all those people were in the club. All they did was a retreat to the club. They were still there. They didn't go home yet.
Great.
I'll tell you.
I hope so, because when you're paying that price for tickets, I mean, what are those tickets? $1,000 a seat?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
$100 a seat?
100? You can't sit in the bullpen for 100.
Yeah. No. You're right about that.
For those seats right behind home plate there at Dodger Stadium. So I would hope that for those who were there on maybe not on a regular basis, that they at least at the very least maybe retreated to the club and enjoyed watching the game on TV or something.
Don, we're going to need to take a break here.
We have 1 minute to go. How about Detroit, boys? I think Detroit's putting on quite a show here in the early first third of the season. Can they keep it up?
I love it. Look, I'm an old, having worked for the Tigers way back in the day, I've always followed them closely. They've done a really good job of bringing along, mostly developing their players, and it's paying off. And what's really been interesting is how much Javier Baez has brought into what A.J. Hinch is trying to sell in that clubhouse there in Detroit, where it's like, look, we're a family here. We all help each other out. And I might ask you to do something that you're not used to doing, but if I do, it's because we need you to do it for us. And when he took on the job of playing center field when he had to, I mean, it really sparked Javier Baez, and it seemed to be like another rocket booster for the Tigers because they're a fun team to watch. No superstars there by any stretch, except for Skubal, the pitcher, but. At the end of the day, it's fun to watch teams like that develop and come on and win big the way they are. I hope they keep it up all year long.
Roger, any comment on that?
Well, no. I agree. I think it would be great for the team and for the city. I just wanted to say that I wanted to congratulate Tom McCarthy because last night he did the play-by-play on the Tuesday night TBS game.
Correct.
So, he does a lot of on college basketball and obviously some of the NFL games and does a great job. Don and I have known him a long time and from when he was a writer for the Trenton Times many years ago. So,
one last quickie, boys. I don't know how much chance you've had to see College World Series playoffs. I mean, there have been some tremendous. Tennessee, I love watching them. Texas is doing pretty well. I just really enjoy college baseball as well. Any of you fellas watch any of the college games or no?
I have not paid much attention to it, so I wouldn't want to comment on it. But I know the series have been great. That's for sure.
You know, Don. Don, there's been
I just watched it a little. I've also watched the girls' women's World Series, and softball. Obviously, when you have daughter or granddaughter playing. So, but no, I have not watched not that much to express an opinion on.
You know, Don, that opens up another can of worms because we had two coaches that actually shamed themselves and their universities. One was Kevin O'Sullivan from the University of Florida, who let out with a stream of obscenities on his players as they were not playing very well, and then had to go back and apologize to both teams for his demeanor. Then you had the Wake Forest coach who went out on the just about the same operation, and both coaches now are under, I guess, scrutiny by their ADs.
Right. Well, I watched two of the Wake Forest games, and one year they played real well. The next game they did not play as well, and the coach got a little excited. No question about that. Yeah. And but I don't know if Doug Fernandez is ready to go yet, or
I have to get off. I have to get him. I'm going to bring him in.
Okay, just want to say one thing.
Take a break here. Wait. Shall we take a break here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Doug, how you doing?
All right.
Good. I'm going to put you right into the radio. Don, we're joined by Doug Fernandez.
Okay, great columnist in Tribune in Sarasota. We've had him on with us many, many times to look forward to. And he has a tough time finding restaurants to go to lunch about. It's okay.
Whoa.
He's trying to save his money because he's going to retire here very shortly. He's going to be 39 years old, and he's worked long enough. He's still following the Red Sox, but they're dropping so quickly. I don't know if he's going to be able to find them by the end of the season. Doug Fernandez, our special guest this segment. But Doug, before you say anything, Roger had a comment he wanted to make on the last segment of the last show. Go ahead, Roger.
We were talking about the Stanley Cup, and it's just great to see this the pregame team, including the great one, Wayne Gretzky. Up in Edmonton, I think they do a great job, as I've said many times. But I'll tell you, Doug, I love you. We love talking to you. I think about several times I was in Fenway Park, and I did my radio show from on the road, and it was at Fenway one night. It was the Brewers and the Red Sox, and I had the late great, both of them, the late greats, Bob Starr and Bob Uecker. And what a show that was, and all I did was keep my mouth shut. So,
I don't see how that's possible when, you do keep your mouth shut when Don's talking. I don't realize Don's Are you here all week?
Yeah, I saw last night's game as well, and I'll tell you, I agree with you 100%, Doug. But the thing that really surprised me is, and we talked about it last week when it transpired, and that was, how can you have a player tell you what position he's going to play? I mean, I realize he's a great player, and I realize he was a third baseman his entire career with Boston. And I know that he talked about it in spring training. They had originally said he was going to move to first base, and then he was not going to play third base. And then they decided he was only going to be a designated hitter. And then he said, well, what do you want me to do, play every position? I mean, when do you tell a manager what you're going to do?
I don't understand it. People get to the professional sports level, and they forget it's an employer and an employee. The Red Sox are his boss. If I told my boss I'm not going to do that, I'd be on the street. Right. I mean, I'll be on the street the next day. So it's like the fact that he will not, listen, he's the best player on the team. He's been there the longest. He's the highest salaried. He's the face of that franchise. For him not to volunteer to go play first, where they have a huge need when cases went down, for him not to say that, and he hasn't spoken to the media in the last 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. That's why the team is disintegrating. That's just one of the reasons. John Henry flies out there. Supposedly the owner goes out and talks to him. Nothing is resolved. I mean, you got the owner flying halfway across the country to talk to him about this, and nothing gets resolved. Cora seems like he's detached. He seems like he's disinterested. I mean, even last night he said, it must be my fault. We make the same mistakes over and over and over again. It must be my fault, right? I mean, it seems like even he's throwing in the towel. They signed Breslow, this Yale guy, to replace Bloom. This guy's more inept than Cheyenne Bloom was. I mean, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He speaks word salad because he's from Yale. But the guy they signed, Galatu, in the offseason, he gives up 8 runs in the first inning today. I mean, it's absurd. In a long-winded way, Don, I don't know why Divas isn't playing first base, but it just shows that the whole situation is chaos up there, complete chaos.
Roger?
Well, it's sad. I mean, we talked to Doug Hamilton later, Doug, about the Orioles and about the way they have fallen, and the Red Sox have fallen. It's just amazing. I mean, 2 tremendous teams a couple of years ago, and they've just fallen into disgrace.
Well, I'll tell you what the problem is. They don't listen. You guys remember the game? You remember baseball was played. You had guys who were 5-tool players, right? They could hit, they could run, they could throw from the outfield, they could hit with power, they could hit with average. There is no 5-tool players anymore. All you have is guys who can hit for power. If you can hit for power, you can hit 210. If you can hit with power, you don't have to throw from the outfield. You can throw up the screen. Your throws are so bad. You can run the bases like a pickup truck. It doesn't make a difference. Nobody plays the game fundamentally sound anymore. They don't read the ball off the bat. They can't read the ball in front. They take the extra base. They get thrown out by 30, 40 feet. You know, it's a fly ball to medium depth center field. They can't even reach the home plate on 2 hops. It's pathetic. And I grew up with guys like Yastrzemski, Al Kaline, Buford. Every team had guys who could throw from the outfield. Every guy had guys who could run the bases and be smart. And none of these guys are any of that. And that's the main Red Sox problem. They don't do the little things of baseball. That's why the game isn't what it used to be. Right? You don't see a suicide squeeze. You don't see hit and run. You don't see a double steal. All of that stuff is what makes baseball great, and you don't see any of that stuff anymore. It's strikeouts or home runs, and it's boring as hell.
And you're also you're intently watching the free agents. At the end of each year, you're intently watching the free agents who are signing giant contracts and doing nothing. But Baltimore, I guess, got a break because they let their best pitcher go when they had no pitching staff to back him up. He goes to the Red Sox, and he walked off the mound the other night. It doesn't look like he's going to be in any shape to pitch for a while.
Well, the Orioles made a problem. They had Burns, who had 16 wins last year. Okay,
Right.
He signed with Arizona. So who do they bring in rather than re-sign? They bring in Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton is 84 years old now. I mean, the guy has finally run out of gas. It's obvious. He's 0-5. They moved to the bullpen. They banked on signing this guy rather than throwing the money at the proven winner who's still in his prime. Yeah, but listen, the Orioles have won 4 in a row, so they're not free falling anymore. And they're only 4 games away from our Red Sox. I'll tell you, if the Red Sox go to New York could bury them. If New York sweeps them, they put them 13 games out, and then they're done. I bet Cora may even get canned if they lose 3 in a row. Who knows?
Roger?
Do you think it's a lack of discipline from Correa about?
Here's the perfect example. The whole Devers thing. A couple of days ago, before game, he was spotted taking ground balls, had a glove on, standing at third base. taking a couple of ground balls. Cora didn't even know about it. So the reporters asked him about it, and he said, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, it's a clown show. It really is. It looks like Cora is not getting through to these guys. I mean, but then again, guys, you got to think, if you get to the major league level, shouldn't you be able to throw the cutoff guy? Shouldn't you be able to read the ball in front of you and know whether to take the extra base or not? I mean, shouldn't you be taught those things before you get to the major league? I would think.
I would think so, yeah.
But Doug, Cora's been, highly recommended as, doing an outstanding job over the years as a manager. And it just doesn't seem to me. You look at the game last night, he just sort of stands there. And, and at the end of the game, the teams come off the field, and he's still standing by the exit there. I mean, it's unbelievable that he's not doing anything.
Well, he looks detached. And I'm wondering, guys, you know the way baseball is nowadays. The geeks in the analytics department make all the calls, right? I think they let Cora know that this guy's only going four innings today. He's only being allowed to throw 80 pitches. I think Cora and a lot of managers in the major leagues now have those orders from these geeks who never played the game. I think Cora would like to have all his pitchers throw 100 pitches, 110 pitches. But I think he's under orders to take these guys out. And I think he's frustrated. He is really frustrated. And it's not just by the losing. I think by the hierarchy, John Henry is detached from this team. This is no longer the John Henry owning the 04 Red Sox and the 07 Red Sox, those kind of guys. The Red Sox are now just in his portfolio now. They're just one of many items in his portfolio. Liverpool, the soccer team, Manchester United. I mean, he doesn't pay enough attention to the Red Sox anymore, and you see what's happening. The fish rots from the head, and that's what's happening with the Red Sox.
Well, that's an excellent point, because in Philadelphia you have the same situation. You got Josh Harris, who owns the Sixers, who could care less about the Sixers. He also owns the Devils, and he also owns the Commanders, formerly known as the Redskins. And, all of a sudden now, you see him where you never saw him out front of the other two organizations. And now, in the NFL, it's the big time, and now all of a sudden you see him out in the forefront. So it's just like with Henry, he owns a cadre of teams all over the world. So, and in some ways, when you look at it, and Josh Harris is very similar, where they don't care, not like Ed Snyder did with the Flyers, when Ed Snyder was the Flyers.
Well, that's the way it was with before you had these guys who owned mega things, and had a portfolio, and the team was their only investment. Billy Sullivan and the Patriots were like that for years. Billy Sullivan, the Patriots were the only thing, so that was his lifeblood. So he poured everything into that team. Now you have John Henry, who is like a business to him, and he's figuring, well, I got this much money coming in from advertising and the network. If I spend only this much on the team, I'll make $2 billion off the Red Sox this year. So, he doesn't spend like he used to. And I'll tell you this, he misses guys like Werner and especially Larry Lucchino. Larry Lucchino was the face of the Red Sox. He was the guy who pulled the strings talent-wise, and he was the face of the franchise, and he was amiable, and he knew baseball. Now you got freaking Breslow, who's from Yale, who speaks, I kid you not, he speaks in a word salad. The guy is like a Scrabble, a game of Scrabble, when he speaks. It's like he doesn't speak like the old Lou Gorman, the old baseball type. He speaks in this language that's foreign to most baseball fans, It's analytical crap. So, guys, John Henry is not involved, and I think the organization is suffering because of that. I think everything below him, remember Theo Epstein? They used to have Theo Epstein as the general manager. Now Theo Epstein is back with a team but it's like a ceremonial, like only a title. He's not even involved in the day-to-day running of the team. So I don't know what the hell is happening with that team. All I'm saying is the Yankees might kick their ass this weekend very, very badly. Aaron Judge may hit 4 or 5 home runs this week.
But Doug, you're right in the backyard of one of the great owners of the National Hockey League in the last 20 years, and that's Vanek. I mean, not only did Vanek take a franchise and just put all kinds of steam into it from a front office standpoint, right straight to the 2 Stanley Cups and into the finals last year and lost. But at the same time, when he sold a portion of the team, he gave everybody in the organization $50,000 out of that money that he got from selling the team. That's the kind of person you're talking about.
Well, that's the kind of person that, and you find that in hockey a lot. You find, I think the owners, for the most part, I mean, they're Canadian. I think they're a different stock of people. They think of the little guy more than maybe some of the other owners. But listen, he has a home down here. I don't know how often he comes to it, but it's right on St. Armand Circle. And if anybody goes to a Lightning game, it is by far one of the best sporting events you can go to in any professional sport. It's a great venue. There's a lot to do around the area of the arena after the game. And Vanek did all that. I mean, with his own money. I mean, he developed that area where the bars are, and it's a happening place before a game. And that was all because of him. You wouldn't think of a hockey franchise being like, in Florida, you wouldn't think of a franchise being like one of the marquee franchises of the NHL. But I think Tampa Bay Lightning are definitely one of those,
Not only that, but they use $50,000 every game to the military. I mean, you can't do the kinds of things that he does. I don't think in any other sport. I don't know if anybody does anything like that.
Well, I'll tell you what it does. It tells the fans that he's a great guy, and you don't mind spending your money on his product. You don't mind spending $100, $150 going there, and because the guy is somehow going to give it back to other people. He's not going to pocket that. He'll funnel it back in other ways into the community. So he's a great, great guy. I've never interviewed him, but if every sports owner was like that, I think people would maybe like professional sports a little bit more.
Doug, one of the guys that one of the guys that used to be on with us was Tommy Gilbert, and many nights I would spend with Tommy at the Lightning game, and before the game there's a press buffet, and Mr. Vanek used to come in, and he would sit there and talk to anybody and everybody, including the ladies that were serving the meal. He's just a very personable person. His sister was part of the organization. She was always in there. It's a really good family to not only be a sport owner, but they've made a lot of money together in hedge funds. And as you said, he and Bill Gates developed that whole area around the stadium.
And I'll tell you this. I've covered, I don't do it anymore. But back in my salad days, I worked for a paper that when they won the Stanley Cup in 2004, my paper sent me to Calgary for 2 games. All right, they actually flew me and another colleague of mine up there, and that was when I had Martin St. Louis and that.
Right.
But I'll tell you, they had one of the best pre-game buffets. Mm-hmm. I would go to a game to obviously report on it, but just to eat. Mm-hmm. I mean, seriously. I've been to a trillion buffets in my time. They would have, a chef in a high white hat, mm-hmm. slicing off sweet, and it was unbelievable.
Yep.
I mean, it really was.
Yep. Don Shave of the Vets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Leonard Sos.
Lobster Newberg.
That's right.
I know enough about the Eagles' history and Leonard Toad. I mean, he loved Dick Vermeil. Vermeil loved him. I mean, yeah, he was a hell of a guy. He just couldn't control his gambling, right? I mean,
right.
But he took care of the media. Let me tell you.
I'm sure.
The line was the best I've ever had. To just compare a couple of owners. I mean, or I look at the Phillies and how fouled up they were when John Middleton hired that guy, that Ivy League guy, Doug, to be the general manager, and then he had Kapler come in, who was an absolute jerk, and as a manager, and the way the team went down the hill, then he brought Dombrowski in, and they got some baseball people there that turned it around. And that's what it takes. And, I mean, Dombrowski had success, didn't he, with the Red Sox?
Well, listen, Dombrowski is old school, but he's proven old school. Yeah. I mean, he won in Detroit. He's won with the Red Sox. But I'll tell you, an incident that typifies the Red Sox. About 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, Jim Rice, one of the greatest hitters in their history, but old school. Yeah. He was just walking around. This was in spring training or first month of the season. He's walking around, and their top pick, this Roman Anthony, who should be in the major leagues right now, he's tearing up AAA. He was asking Rice something. Rice didn't even go over an offer, and one of these nerds came running over and told Rice, "Sorry, we don't teach that around here. You're basically not allowed. We don't want your help." And that's the way the organization is. Telling Jim Rice that, no, basically, it wasn't like he approached the kid. The kid approached him. And he was telling him the old school way, which is not dip your back shoulder. And you basically, see the ball, hit line drives, and the ball will go out of the ballpark. Don't try to hit home runs, but they don't want to hear that. So they dismissed Rice. It was a big story in Boston for a couple of days. Basically telling Jim Rice to get lost. And that's the problem. Not enough baseball guys. Guys who never played the game are now running the game. It's amazing.
Analytics are running the game. They have all these crazy ideas about the way the game has to be played. And as you said at the beginning of our interview, they can't throw to the right base. They can't run the bases. They can't steal. They can't double steal. They can't do anything outside of try to hit home runs every time they get to the plate. I mean, even when you get to the 10th inning and the ghost runner, they don't even try to move him over.
Well, there's no such thing as situational baseball anymore. You got a guy on second. You got 2 strikes. Hit the ball to the right side, on the ground. Get him over the third. These lunkheads are still swinging from the heels. And that's why every game you see at least 12, 13, 14, 15 strikeouts. These guys, each guy in the lineup is striking out 1 or 2 times a game. You got guys who have no business being home run hitters trying to hit home runs. And it upsets me to no end because I'm a baseball lover. And to see the game being basically abused like this, it's terrible. It really is.
I mean, the other thing I was surprised about, Roger and Doug, is that even Jeter got on the other night after the Dodgers-Yankee game when he was at a Dodger Stadium, and he said, there's no question that the American League is so the National League is so superior to the American League right now. It's not even funny.
Well, I think they're still playing. Remember back in the day, the American League had the reputation of being like maybe they played more small ball in the National League, more artificial turfs, so they didn't try to hit the home run. They tried to hit the ball on the ground, move the guy along.
Right.
And I think that's what's being done now. And you have guys. Listen, Goose Gossage talked about he hates today's game. He says you got guys, all they're told to do, throw as hard as you can for as long as you can. If it's only 4 innings, okay, we'll get somebody here to throw as hard as he can. And then they don't change speeds, they don't do anything, and you have all these arm problems. Red Sox have a pitcher who's been on the DL twice already, and he's a reliever. He pitches 1 inning at a time. He's on the second time on the DL. I mean, how does that happen, right? Back in the day, Goose Gossage, Dick Kidrow, Ed Figueroa, all those guys, Catfish, those guys never went on the DL, right?
Steve Carlton.
Oh, man. Well, you're talking about a Superman. If you're talking about, But none of those guys...
Doug, we have talked about this over the years on the show. And I just see it because I see high school games, kids getting bad arms in high school, okay? And it all goes back to Little League, where they're able to play on several teams, and then they pitch their limit for one team in one league, and then they go out and then they pitch for a second team in a different league. And it goes into travel baseball. I mean, and that is why I really believe, and I'm not alone, that's why you have these players today getting Tommy John surgery at 20 years old.
Well,
you know?
the prevailing opinion now is, or the thought is, that if you have Tommy John surgery, you come back better. So the warped thinking is, well, I'm going to have Tommy John surgery, and I'll come back better than before. No, the idea is to avoid Tommy John surgery to begin with. And some of these guys are having it 2-3 times.
It's 2 years later when they come back, don't forget, too.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
You never saw injuries when guys just threw the ball 90 miles an hour, but they also had a curve and maybe a change up, a palm ball, something a little bit off speed. Now everything is hard, and that's what you see,
Roger?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you just throw it as hard as you can, as long as you can. I saw Christopher Sanchez was at 96 pitches yesterday, allowed 1 run, and then they pulled him out. But okay, that's at 96 pitches, even though he's pitched a good game. But they've taken the Phillies. I mean, they've taken Wheeler. Wheeler had a bad game the last time out. But a lot of times it's been an error, and that's what has started the onslaught from the other team. It's not playing basics.
No, I'll tell you what I've seen. I know we're going to get going. On YouTube, Nolan Ryan's last 2 no-hitters, the complete games have popped up. The 6th no-hitter and the 7th no-hitter. And I've watched the entire game. Now, he was a freak of nature. But this guy was 43 years old in the 9th inning, still humping it up there, I'm sure at 97 miles an hour. But he had a great curveball also. And it's unbelievable. He must have been like 120, 130 pitches. And it was just unbelievable to see this guy and know today's game is the exact opposite of that. The exact opposite,
Well, look at the game Cone pitched, way back in his heyday when he threw 160-some pitches in one game. And the game that went 17 innings, it's just a different way of knowing how to take care of your body. They took care of their body and their arms. They didn't just go out there and start throwing balls and not know what they were doing. There was a reason for why they did what they did and how they maximized their opportunities to do it. And Doug, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I just think that we've lost the game that we knew. I mean, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult now to watch a game all the way through.
Don, 100%. It's impossible to watch a game because you're either seeing a guy hit a home run and run around the bases or strike out and walk back to the dugout. That's all you see, literally.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's sad, and I mean we're traditionalists and we love baseball. I mean, and like you were saying, you used to hang out, after the game. I can remember as a kid going to Connie Mack Stadium, and you'd hang around outside or you'd stay in the bleachers, take your time leaving. You just love the game. You love to watch them. You love to play. At 8 o'clock in the morning, go up to the local baseball field. You play, come home at 6 o'clock at night, and you were there all day long just playing baseball.
Well, I mean, those days are done because these guys, them, it's a business. After the game, they shower, and they are out of there. Mm-hmm. They don't hang around and talk about the game anymore. They're out of there, and that element is completely gone from today's game. Just
it's 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock, and we're up against the clock. Always a pleasure to have you with us, and a lot of fun conversation about the game that we like and the game that we used to know and the game that we don't know right now.
Well, we can talk about it more when you buy me lunch.
Whoa!
Hey, listen, just remember one thing. I'm going to be 91, so I don't buy green bananas.
Whoa!
When you're walking on the sidewalk, avoid the cracks. They can trip you up.
That's right. He knows that.
Bye, guys.
Take care, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Take care, Doug. Thanks a lot.
I'm going to put Trevor in.
Okay, we'll take a break. break, and we'll bring Trevor right in, and we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about a little football.
Hello.
You ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Don, Trevor's on with us.
Trevor Basso on with us right now, and Trevor, of course, a very, very big advocate of football in the spring, and they're getting down close to the playoffs right now. And Trevor, first of all, welcome back to the program. And last week we had a chance to talk about a lot of things that were happening, and coaches that could be changing, and coaches that weren't going to be changing. Roger, we'll let you start this segment off.
Trevor, always a pleasure to talk to you and learn a lot about spring football. Okay, how do things look to you? As like Don said, we're getting ready for the playoffs. And, any surprises, any severe injuries that can have an effect on the playoffs coming up?
Yeah, really appreciate you guys having me on again. Greatly appreciated. I always love talking to you guys about, spring football or football in general. Hey, yeah, you guys nailed it on the head. Playoffs this weekend. We have the USFL Conference Championship, 3 p.m. On Sunday, and then we have the XFL Conference Championship on, I think it's 6 p.m. on Sunday as well. So, really good matchups. My predictions and my outcome predictions are going to be, I think the Stallions win the matchup against the Panthers, and then I think the St. Louis Battlehawks win the matchup against the DC Defenders. But I think this is the most competitive postseason that we're getting so far in spring football, in terms of all four of these teams, in my opinion, have the chance and the opportunity to take it away and win it all. Because we've seen really good things from all four of these teams in all aspects of the game. We have the Panthers, who, honestly, overall, they play sound football. Mike Nolan, he's a really good coach. You can tell he loves this team. Same thing with the Birmingham Stallions. Skip Holtz, we talk about him a lot. He's, one of the best springtime, if not the best springtime football head coach ever. Very successful, 3 championships in a row, trying to get his 4th. And then on the other side of things, with Anthony Becht with St. Louis, he's, very passionate, a loud guy, loves the team, very passionate about the Battlehawks organization and brand. And then Shannon Harris, who's, yes, he's leaving the UFL after this season, but, trying to go out with a bang, get his team to the promised land and get a trophy with DC. But a lot of different stories and avenues and, different juggernaut positions for each of the teams and strengths and weaknesses. But in my opinion, I think the Stallions just have that, that edge to them, that just they have the ability to, beat a team that might be better on paper. But it's going to come down to, any given Sunday. But a lot of really good football left, 2 more weeks, obviously. So really excited about it.
You talked about the Birmingham Stallions last week, and the fact they used 6 different quarterbacks thus far this season, and right now, they're 7-3 overall, and Michigan right there, right behind them at 6-4. Things not quite as close over on the other side. St. Louis doing a little bit better job. So I would assume that, and you've talked about Birmingham for so many shows that we've done last year and this year. Not only has coaching been great, and obviously great if you're still going to win your division and you use 6 different quarterbacks. There's got to be a reason for it. And to me, I agree with you. I think it's coaching.
100%. It is the coaching. Going back even last year, going back to 2023, going back to 2022, it really, the consistent factor, there's been really good players, really good plays, great games by the team, but the consistent factor is Skip Holtz, how he's able to navigate each game like it's his own puzzle. And watching him do it each and every weekend with the incredible access that you're able to get with like some of the sideline interviews, the mic'd up moments with Skip, and he's his own. He's a personality for sure. And like you said, the 6 quarterbacks and they have 7 wins this year. That's insane. And I know they only had 2 players on the All UFL team, which got released, which a lot of snubs in my opinion, but. They've had some really good players like Deion Kane, wide receiver. In my opinion, he has the opportunity to become the MVP. That hasn't been announced yet, but he's been outstanding this year. But Skip Holtz, he is that commodity that he's able to manage the team, organize the team, and also he calls the plays. So he's the quarterback coach. He's everything on offense you kind of want in one person. So his ability to kind of navigate problems and challenges, especially in game, is a challenge of its own for opposing head coaches, in my opinion. And kind of a big reason why the all-time record for the Michigan Panthers against the Birmingham Stallions since 2022 is 0-7. So they've not been able to beat this team, since the revival of spring football. And, that's a big storyline in my opinion. And, Mike Nolan, don't get me wrong, he's the guy to do it. It's just, he's got to have a lot go his way, especially with his offense. They just turn the ball over in these weird moments where it's like, well, why are you calling that play? Run the ball there. And I think, Mike Nolan still is learning here and there because it's not the NFL. You got to kind of adapt and call the games differently. And some of these head coaches just have more experience in this league than others, and I feel like Skip has that, has the cheat code, if you will, on the back of his hand, and he just kind of is able to, as I said before, in game, be able to come up with a game plan that adjusts his and kind of propels his team to the win every single time, most of the time. I mean, statistically, this is their worst season. 3 losses is the worst year with the Birmingham Stallions in regular season. They're undefeated in postseason, in this new era of spring football. So you just got to respect that dominance and the dynasty that he's built. And Mike Nolan definitely has a challenge for him and his team, the Michigan Panthers. But they had a great year too, 6-4, second in the USFL conference. They had a solid season, and they have really good players too. Breland Speaks, C.O.C. Mariner, Malik Turner, Jalen Moore, Gunnar Oaks made the All-UFL team as the tight end, which was awesome to see. It's a local product. He's been with the team for 3 years now. Really been working towards that. You can see that. He's gotten, I think, 3 touchdowns this year. Awesome. He's a blocker, too. You don't see that. And with the St. Louis Battlehawks, you have Jakir Pearson. You have Jacob Sailors. You have Max Dugan, who... the St. Louis Battlehawks' biggest weakness is they cannot throw the ball as consistently as any of these other the other 3 teams in the playoffs. So, their strength is they can run the ball like no one else. Javon Howard, Jacob Sailors, like I said, they have a great rushing attack. And then with DC, they have an MVP candidate as well at their quarterback position. Jordan Teano had 17 passing touchdowns in 9 games played. He's a guy that, you're going to look towards for those big plays, but he does have that turnover issue where, he'll randomly kind of throw a pick or maybe even 2 picks on back-to-back series. So, like I said, each team has their own weaknesses, but all of these teams have really showed the ability to kind of make a splash. So I'm excited. I got a lot of anticipation for this playoff weekend.
Roger?
Yeah, Trevor, I wanted to talk about St. Louis. They're 8-2, first place in their division. And how's their attendance been? Because I just think that the city really got hosed, so to speak, about the move of the Rams back to L.A. The city was doing everything that they could do and was asked to do to keep that team. And I was wondering how their attendance been. They obviously have a good team. They're the only team 8-2. Like you said, Birmingham's lost 3 games for the first time, and they're 7-3 in their division, first place. Do you know much about the attendance in St. Louis and the support?
Oh yeah, numerically and overall, they have the best fan base. There's games where they were pulling 30,000, 27,000, 20,000 mark. Really good turnout. Always a good atmosphere, and their playoff game is going to be at St. Louis, so a massive advantage for the Battlehawks going into the playoffs. The issue is, this Battlehawks team, they had the home field advantage last year, and they laid an egg against the Brahmas. And that was Wade Phillips. He was coaching. He was 100%. That Brahmas team looks night and day different. But this Battlehawks team has had this advantage before, and we talked about it earlier. But it's really coaching. So can they get over the hump? I think they can this year with the running attack they have. They have a really good defense. Travis Feeney has played really well for them. But the support of St. Louis for their team, it by far is the best in the UFL, followed swiftly by the Michigan Panthers organization. In Week 10, they actually pulled an all-time high attendance record since the 80s USFL of around 17,000 people in attendance. And yeah, there was a cool little draw. The first 2,000 people in the stadium for the Panthers got a free Jake Bates bobblehead, and we all know he's a hometown hero there in Detroit, on the Lions now in the NFL, but obviously coming from the UFL last year. But I think the league needs to do more things like that to connect to NFL fans or just football fans in general, because we'll see turnouts like that. And the Panthers, they've had a really consistent fan base as well. So in my opinion, the top 4 fan bases in the UFL after this year, number 1 for sure is the St. Louis fan base. Number 2, the Michigan fan base. Number 3, I would say the DC fan base. Audi Field in DC seems to always have at least 11,000 to 12,000 people. And then number 4, I would have the Stallions. They're averaging around that same 11,000 to 12,000 mark as well. The remaining other 4 teams, Arlington, Houston, Memphis, and San Antonio, they definitely need to do some work on those franchises. They're all averaging around that 10,000 to 8,000 mark. So we want to see that attendance number grow per week, obviously, because it did decrease percentage-wise from the inaugural season last year. So getting fans in the stands is crucial. But we talked about it last week, and we also had another game peak at around 1.4 million viewers this past weekend, when Week 9 had a game peak at 1.5, I believe it was. But they're having so much success with the TV ratings that unfortunately, it's not really, I feel like, encouraging the league to really get on the in-person attendance as soon as they should. They're getting encouraged by those TV numbers, which is really good, but in terms of watching the TV product, seeing some of these teams not have a fan base, it's really rough to watch. So I hope that they address those straggler teams next year. If they don't, relocate or rebrand them, I would expect them to dump a lot of money into individual team marketing. I really think that that's important. And I also think increasing roster sizes for next season would be increasingly important, as long as, I would also like a preseason game, at least one. And, after all of that, I think would be smart to expand. But I think they're probably going to relocate or rebrand 2 teams and then add 2 teams into the fold, which I don't know, it might be a mistake. I think it might be a mistake, but it really is going to come down to
You're in, Mike.
Deals they're going to get. Any more connections or ties to the NFL will assist the league as well. But yeah, the attendance is a huge headline, I guess, heading into that 2026 season, and especially the off season.
Well, Trevor, you talked last week about that very same point, that the bottom feeders have to start doing something. Something like San Antonio is really having all kinds of problems with attendance. And as I say, the bottom feeders in the league, if you're going to have that kind of consistency, not only for not for television ratings, but also for people in the seats, you got to win games.
100%. And we kind of saw that pattern, and I understand if your local team is not doing well, I get it. You know, not everyone is going to turn out. If your team is 1-6 and there's 2 more home games, it's going to be hard to encourage people to go out and watch that team. So what do? You do what the Showboats did, $2 concessions, or you do free tickets. You try out different things. Because at the end of the day, if the attendance doesn't truly matter right now, and the ratings and the TV numbers are the only thing that matter, then you should be doing everything in your power to making sure that those seats are filled. No matter how they do it, you just get them filled. And like you said, those bottom feeder teams that are struggling to win and to put people in the stands, it's not like if they relocate it or rebrand it, it's going to get better. They need to fix the problem now with the brands they have, in my opinion, before they overexpand and get larger as a league.
Roger?
Yeah, I just wanted to go ahead. I just wanted to say something a little off of the subject because I was watching the hockey game. The pregame, and it's getting ready for the face-off game 1, Edmonton against Florida. But I saw a picture, and was sad in many ways, of Marv Albert in his wheelchair the other day. And I don't know whether you saw it, Don. He congratulated Kenny, his son, on exceeding his national broadcast. In his history, in his career. And I thought it was like sad in many ways to see Marv in that condition.
I did not see that. I saw him at Madison Square Garden for the game. He was sitting in the first. Yeah, he was sitting in the first row during the course of. And he's got a lot of difficulty with Mr. Nolan and with the New York Knicks and with the Madison Square Garden organization, and. But he was there. He was there for the finals. He was sitting in the first row, and they showed him very quickly. Not long camera work, but they did show him. But I did not see him in a wheelchair.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the picture that I saw. But I just thought it was a great. When you think about it, you're a great broadcaster, and here your son exceeds you in numbers, and Kenny's still going strong. Obviously, and just now has exceeded his father in numbers. I only bring that up because we're a lot older than you, Trevor, and we've seen this. And I can remember Marv Albert as the sports director at WHN in New York, long before it became the first fan radio station in New York. So. Those things happen. But, let me ask you this. And we're talking about broadcasting because obviously where I live and where you live and where Don lives, either in Florida or New Jersey, there is not a team in the UFL. And how are there broadcasts? Now, I have watched I watched the game, part of it the other day, because I think Kurt Menefee was doing the play-by-play. And, of course, he's on, Fox pregame show and Good Day New York now and on Fox 5 in New York. But do they get good local radio broadcasts throughout the league? We've never talked about that I remember.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've talked about it either. To my knowledge, I'm not too sure. That's a great question. I know whatever Fox, ESPN typically have for their podcast/radio department, I'm sure that they, are at least broadcasters are advertised on the weekend when the games are on. I don't think ABC does anything. I know they get a game or so every other week. And I heard they are actually getting to broadcast the championship game, so that's pretty significant. But in terms of broadcasting for radio, there's some private channels here and there on YouTube and on X that I listen to and watch, but there isn't really that big radio channel or radio station that kind of has that coverage over the UFL, which might be another big disconnect that the UFL is having with trying to reach more people, especially people that have the experience of the rich history of spring football, of the USFL in the 80s, of the XFL in the early 2000s. So that might be a market they need to start diverting to as soon as possible.
Trevor, I like your idea and optimism, but in my opinion, it is not going to happen. The great teams in the NBA and in the National Hockey League and a lot of the even in baseball, they're giving up a lot of the radio broadcasts. They've sold the rights or given the rights away, and radio. In fact, the New York Post spends a ton of money every week now saying don't buy a car that doesn't have AM radio in it. Because you're not going to get some of the things that are only on AM radio. But there really is major cutbacks because of travel, expenses, and all the games are on TV, whether they're up on the, ESPN, no matter what outlet they're on, the games that you want to see are all on TV. And they feel it's just not a necessary item to have radio. And Roger, we grew up with it, we loved it, but it's not the way it is anymore.
Hey Don, we're joined by.
Frank.
I just want before Trevor leaves, we're joined by Mike Simsack, and Mike had a couple questions last week when Trevor had just gone off. So Mike, why don't you ask your questions?
No, I got to Trevor last week. I will say, to answer the question that y'all are asking, I am in a market that has a local team, and
that's right, you do. Yeah.
And my experience has been that they are not on radio. I have never had the occasion to be traveling and hearing them on terrestrial AM or FM radio. Whether or not they have something on satellite, I don't know. I would doubt it. But I also haven't seen a broadcast, like a local broadcast of the DC Defenders either. So my guess.
Let me interrupt just to say the Oilers have just scored a goal. Edmund just scored a goal at 18:54 to go in the first period, and they jumped right in a scramble in front of the net. I didn't see who scored it, but it's 1-0 right now. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't been able to really find a broadcast, not national, of the DC Defenders when they're not the Fox or the ABC, ESPN game. Just random, sitting channel surfing on Saturday.
Right.
I got all of the College World Series games, but at the same time, I know DC was playing this weekend. I wasn't able to find them, so I'm guessing that they were probably streaming on some sort of service. To Trevor's point, when you're the company that owns these rights and you want to get people excited about it, you've got to make it so that people can see it. And I think the UFL is kind of falling into that trap a little bit that MLS has fallen into, where it's like, we're just going to put it behind this wall. That way we don't have to worry about actually coming up with numbers for TV viewership. That we don't have to show the actual ratings numbers, and we can tell you that everything's good. But in reality, we don't really know what it is. And this is a team in DC that's good, that has a relatively robust, albeit a slightly cult following, but they've done all right standings wise. They've done all right with generating atmosphere. I'm always hearing the commercials for them, but if you're not at the game and they're not on television, I think it's kind of hard to catch them. or know where to catch them.
Well, my thought was that I think ESPN in Washington now is the old legendary 6:30, the old WMAL. And I would have thought if anybody would do it, they would, because I believe the baseball is on the FM. And then I did also notice that down here, the United are on the radio. And I believe every game, and it's on the sports radio 92.9, the game. And it's one of the one of the big companies, one of the big broadcasting companies that owns it. So
on the road as well as at home.
Yeah, I believe they are. And I'll tell you, I know the play-by-play broadcaster, but I've heard them. I've listened to the United games, and they really do a good job. So
yeah, I believe we talked to Mike at one point in time, but I think Atlanta has a little bit of a different deal going on than DC does. I know that they're not on 6:30. I've definitely been driving during game times and have both of those preset and haven't heard them. And I've yet to hear a DC United game on the radio. I believe the Spirit do have a radio broadcast, but I know that those are outlets, and it is funny because, you have two regional sports networks in this particular area that desperately need programming in Masson and Monumental Sports, and it's interesting to me that they don't do more with it. I know, for example, MLS, you cannot have a local broadcast anymore. All of their stuff is done in-house. So Atlanta's a little bit unique so far that they even have a local radio team. But I've never been able to catch them on radio. I don't know where to find DC United or the Defenders on radio in this area.
No, and I can't. As I said, I really couldn't even tell you a station I could think of that would the UFL games would be on radio. I don't know of any, at least locally in New York or Philadelphia, that would have any of the games on. I may be incorrect, but I don't know of any. But Roger, you ever heard of any games in the New York, Philadelphia area that have been on?
No. That I don't know. I know they talk about it, and
Trevor, have you heard any, Trevor?
Trevor's gone.
Oh, okay.
He had to go to work.
Go ahead, Roger.
No, I have not. So I know for the United, Mike Conti does the play-by-play, and he does some other sports too, and does a lot of updates. He's been there quite a while, and his brother. I know both of them because they went to Penn State. Matt was in PR for the Falcons when I moved here in 2008, and then he went to the Thrashers when they opened up, and now he's with the Colts as director of PR. He's been with the Colts for a long time. So his brother Mike is the one that does the play-by-play for the United.
Mike, any other direction you want to go?
Oh, I always try and let you guys lead this dance. So however you want to take it today, we'll go in that direction.
Well, let's go to the MLS, and then we can talk some baseball.
Well, fine by me. We are now in the international break for MLS. There's a couple of international friendlies and qualifiers for the U.S. men coming up. We have the Club World Cup starting off, this new tournament that will be happening, I guess, every 4 years and a year before the World Cup. Starting up, there are 32 of the top club teams in international football. 4 of them, including Inter Miami, are from MLS. That'll be starting here in about 10 days.
Where are they gonna play the games?
Mostly, I know Atlanta, Texas, Philadelphia.
Okay.
New York, Chicago, all the pretty big venues, all the ones that we're going to see next year in the World Cup proper, plus a few others. It used to be that there was something called the Confederations Cup that they would use as basically a shakedown tournament to see how the venues give the organizers an opportunity to see how the venues function. We don't really need something as much like that here because so many of the stadiums that we're using are typically already used for major events, specifically football. So we know that. We do want to see how stadium security works out. After last year, when we were hosting the Gold Cup, the Cotton Bowl Championships, Copa America, and there were some fan troubles and things like that. So this will be an interesting look to see how these teams and how security goes. But it's basically like a World Cup sort of format with 32 teams. But instead of the national teams, it's club teams. So we'll see the Real Madrids and Atletico Madrid, Inter Miami, and some of the biggest names in club soccer. I don't know how interested a lot of these teams are in actually winning this because now all of a sudden you've just played a 60-game regular season and you've got another 4-week, month-long tournament that you've got to play over in the United States. But it definitely looks like some of these teams are trying to win. I've seen some moves being made in advance, some big-name players being signed or delaying their departures in order to play in this particular tournament. I know, for example, Real Madrid, who were the champions of Europe last year, paid an additional $10 million to be able to sign a player, Trent Alexander-Arnold from Liverpool, just so that they could have him for this tournament. So it's going to be interesting. I'm kind of in the middle trying to figure out how judge the excitement. I haven't heard a lot of people saying like, oh my gosh, I'm really looking forward to it. And that could be because it's the end of a very long season. People are a little bit burnt out with this. It could be because this is something new and we're not used to seeing it, so it doesn't have the history of a World Cup, and it's not necessarily right now tapping into that fervor that those tournaments engender. But we'll be getting that soon enough. The Philadelphia Union had a win and a draw last week, so they are now not only 4 points clear of the Eastern Conference standings, but they're sitting in pole position with the best points total in all of MLS. Roger, Atlanta United, had 2 wins on the trot, both of which they put up crooked numbers, which was good for them, but then they hit a roadblock and conceded 4, so they dropped points again this week. Cincinnati dropping points cost them, so they fall 4 points behind the Atlanta United and or Philadelphia Union. And the wait is over. LA Galaxy actually finally picked up their first win of the season, so they avoid that. They avoid the rest of the
snide. They went off the snide.
They're finally off the snide. They got a point. They got a victory. So we will no longer have. We've avoided the fate of having a team that doesn't win the entire season.
How about that?
Roger?
Well, I was just going to say a couple of things. It was on the score update saying Edmonton's up still 1-0. Phillies are up 1-0 over Toronto on a Castellanos home run earlier, and also Mick Abel is pitching a 2-hitter. So, and only I think 5 strikeouts. So he's done a really good job. I think 74 pitches, 57 strikes, something like that. That's a good sign, gentlemen.
Castellanos has done pretty well. He's hit a few home runs the last couple of days.
Yeah, he has. But I'll tell you, he's an Iron Man. Because
You're in the air. You're in, bud.
Got it. Had another. He and his wife just had a little girl, and he just is a very a stable guy. You wonder sometimes why he doesn't hit better, but when you get a workhorse that you know he's going to be there every night, you don't have to worry about injuries or things like that. He obviously takes care of himself. But that's good that Abel's pitching another great game.
Yeah, and they still got Painter down in the minor leagues, so we could see two of their really young the Phillies' young gem pitchers coming up. Good for McAbel, though, getting another quality start there.
He's getting close. He's getting close, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, do you get to see go out to any games to see the Commanders play?
The Commanders?
Yeah. I know the Commanders. Oh, the Nationals. What am I thinking?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I want to go, I've been to a few. I haven't been to one this season, but I'll go and see them. They're just a team that has been caught in this rebuilding phase. With Mackenzie Gore leading the league in strikeouts and James Wood starting to hit. It's making that Juan Soto trade look a little bit better, but I can't sit there and say like the Nationals were able to quickly jumpstart their rebuild process with the Scherzer and Soto trades, because it's been 5 seasons and they're still kind of just stuck in this 70 to 75 win range, which is probably where they'll be again this year. And although they have graduated a couple of their prospects from their farm system, I don't see where they've gotten. I'm yet to see that core that they're claiming to have come forward and show me that, okay, this is a team that's on the precipice. They haven't had that Orioles like jump a couple of years ago where all of a sudden you see these guys playing and you're like, okay, there's really legitimately something there. I mean, Woods is a really good hitter, and I think you can build a lot around him. Gore has been around for the better part of 3 or 4 seasons playing in the major leagues. He's got the strikeout numbers, but he's still giving up earned runs. Dylan Cruz isn't hitting at all. Robert Hassel, the third, who is the third part of that outfield, he's finally made his major league debut. Kind of a mixed bag there. We expect to see Jarlin Susano, who's another one of those prospects that they picked up in the Soto trade at some point this year, but we haven't seen him yet. He's struggled at AAA. So it's just, they're still just kind of stuck in neutral. And we're waiting to see, when and if they're going to ever take that next step forward.
Let's jump over to the Commanders for a minute, because the mini camps, the 6-day jobs have been coming and going. Any comments about that, Quinn? What's he look like?
I think Quinn's they've got a pretty good read on what it is. This is year 2 in the system, so they're putting new stuff in. They have a couple of new players, but we're still waiting to see what's going to go on with the Terry McLaurin contract. He is not in mini camps because he's waiting on a new deal. The same with Laramie Tunsil and Marshawn Lattimore. There's the ever-present rumors about guys like Nick Chubb and Jadeveon Clowney who are still out on the market available and would fill positions of need for the Commanders, who have the salary cap to sign them, but just they have not done that yet.
Mike, let me interrupt you a little bit, because there are a lot of players that are still out there, who are waiting for contracts who, as you just indicated, Clowney being one of them, but there are quite a few pretty good players sitting out there waiting to get some money.
I know, and all the players who are out there now kind of come with their own sets of question marks. For Chubb, multiple ACL injuries coming off again, another serious knee injury. How much does he want, and how much can he actually contribute?
Right.
With Clowney, there's always been a question of work ethic and attitude. I mean, at 32, he's not an old guy, but there's always been this feeling that his production has never matched his potential. Former number 1 pick, I can still remember him basically shredding the Michigan offensive line when he played for South Carolina in the bowl game. And we've never kind of seen that on the NFL level. Questions of fit and attitude and how he would be in the locker room. I know that the Commanders very much value their culture, and they're all about bringing in guys who are the right fit for their culture. And I think the personality mismatch is a lot of why he is not in D.C., because it's a perfect match between player and need. I just don't think that they necessarily feel like they want to deal with him right now. But you look at a team like the Eagles, who they won a championship because at points in time they were willing to take those risks on these guys that might not be perfect fit. Right? You know, you're going to go out, and even though we know that the defense, the tackle that they picked up, the rookie a couple of years ago, he was he had a lot of issues. But Jalen Carter, when they brought him in, but they felt like their locker room was strong enough. They've been able to put up with A.J. Brown and his eccentricities and relatively keep him engaged. So they got those guys, and they've taken those risks, and it paid off for them. At some point in time, you wonder if the Commanders are just going to have to break down and do the same to take the next step, because you know, they are a team that is saying that they have Super Bowl aspirations, but I'm looking at their roster, and I don't necessarily see a Super Bowl roster in there.
We're joined by Doug.
We'll tell you that Florida just scored as well, so it's now 1-1, 9-11 to go first period in the Stanley Cup final playoffs. We'll keep you updated on that as well. Roger?
Yeah, the Blue Jays just scored a run, so Abel's out of the game now. And I think that's the first run he gave up. He pitched a shutout in his last game for the innings that he pitched. So Kerkering's in there now, so it's 1-1 in the seventh inning. But I wanted getting back to the Commanders. They have the quarterback. I'm sure they're very confident with him. And that's got to be exciting, knowing who they have and what they have, Mike, going into the season.
I mean, that's the big one. When you have a guy who played like Jade Daniels did last year, it's given everybody a real sense of, look, they had a phenomenal season. It was a great ride. Who would have thought that this rookie quarterback would not only more than double the win total that they had the previous season when they ended up with the number 2 pick, but take them all the way to the NFC Championship game, and in the process have to go into Tampa Bay and beat the Buccaneers on the last play, go to Detroit and absolutely just manhandle the Detroit Lions before they just ran into the Eagles. But, you know, there's a lot of excitement surrounding this team. Plus, you know, we're still and I'm sure we'll get more into this in the future, but, you know, we still have the new stadium. This is the most excitement around the Washington football franchise through their many names and identities since the late 90s, since the mid 90s. I mean, well over 20 years, going close to 30. This is the most excitement that I can remember around there, and optimism surrounding this team. There's a lot of people, and the fans are back. You know, hey, we're going to win. We're going to challenge for the Super Bowl this year. We're this and that. So there's a lot of positivity.
Florida just scored another goal to go up 2-1. And so Edmonton started off by leading 1-0. Florida comes back with back-to-back goals in the first period. And that's where we stand right now with, I'll give you a little bit of the time when it comes up. I hadn't come up on the screen yet. But Mike, I agree with you 100%. I think there should be a lot of excitement. I think Quinn has done a remarkable job. And if he has the kind of success this year of bringing people in to help the cause and make the team better than he had last year, that they ought to really be a factor in the National Football League East. I just think they have to be.
Hey, Don, we're joined by Doug, and just so everybody will know, I've extended the time limit an extra 20 minutes so that we can get his full perspective in.
Oh, great.
Good.
I'll wrap up with this, Don. It's hard to catch lightning in a bottle twice. Last year they went out, they signed a bunch of these guys, and every hit on everything, right? They hit on everything.
Right.
You know, Roger knows, Doug knows. You know, it's hard when you go back and you try the same thing and you're hoping to hit and make sure that all the 50-50 prospects that you bring in all break your direction. It's really hard to do that 2 years in a row. If they are able to do it again, yeah, they will absolutely be a major factor in the NFC East this year. But, you know, it's not like a team that was built through the draft. It's not like a team that has necessarily had this core players that have been together for a long time. This is a team that has been assembled year after year. They were assembled for last year. They have some of the same parts back, but not all of them. And again, we're going to see a lot of turnover in between this year and next year. So it's hard to kind of see that progression when every year you're restocking about half of your team.
Mike, thank you very much as always. I'll tell you, that's it's great to talk with you week in and week out. They go over so many different topics, and so thank you so very much.
Have a great week, Mike.
I'll catch up with y'all next week. Have a good
Thanks,
one.
Mike.
All right, Doug Hamilton on the line right now, down there in the Baltimore, Washington area as well. The Open Championship coming up this weekend. Next week, I should say next weekend, not this weekend. They're still playing this weekend. But we'll stay with that football for a minute, Doug. Anything new on the Ravens? Anything you want to touch on there before we go to another? Because we got the Belmont coming up this weekend. We got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, nothing in particular. I mean, I think once you start post-draft and you've got all, whether it's free agents you signed or different things you've done with your roster, and then you've got your draft, you've got your rookies, and you go through the rookie portion of the training camp, OTAs. I mean, a lot of that, this is all much ado about nothing when it comes to, like, I was listening to, you were talking about Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin isn't going to go to OTAs, and it has nothing to do with his contract. He's a veteran. He's not going to go. Like, Lamar Jackson's not there. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
a lot of these players don't go to those because, I mean, A, they don't want them to get hurt, but B, they give all the reps to, I mean, there's a gazillion other people there that are drafted, undrafted, second-year players, third-year players, people that had injuries, all these things that they're trying to get back in shape, and they're going to get back into football activities. And it's, I mean, the Ravens have a rookie kicker. Cooper Rush is a backup quarterback that got signed. So there's things that they're trying to work in there, I think, that makes sense. We also know that, when you talk about preseason football, it's the same concept. You've got guys that are battling for, 1, 2, 3, 5 spots remaining on the roster. A lot of it's been set. Can they make the backup roster? So there's nothing really happening here in Baltimore with regard to, the roster and some different things. And I will also comment, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney, as you mentioned, is still out there, but I think statistically he had one of his best seasons in his career the year he played for the Baltimore Ravens. And although we really wanted him back here in Baltimore, he wanted to go back to where he was from, which was Carolina. But I don't think, to me, there was, I mean, for the time he spent in Baltimore, there was never a question mark, within the locker room or his work ethic, or I think he rejuvenated himself here in Baltimore, playing under, Mike McDonald. And I think the reason why he didn't have a successful career, some people may say, that don't match his number one, overall status, was the fact that people didn't understand how to use him. Jadeveon Clowney was a wonderful addition to either 3-4 scheme as an outside linebacker or 4-3 as a DM. But he's a great edge setter, and he has pass rush capabilities. He had double-digit sacks the year he was in Baltimore. So I don't see a problem with that. And hell, I'd like to have him come back.
I think the biggest difficulty with Clowney was his first year. He held out so long, and they wanted to get so much money, and then he got injured right away, and that really set the tone for what people thought about what he was doing. Was he in condition to play? Was he, all those things came up because he held out for so long in his initial season. Roger, you're up.
Well, and he also was at great expectations coming out of South Carolina, #1 draft pick, and everybody wanted him. And you're right. I mean, then you hold out because you're greedy and you're out of shape. Or you're not in football shape. You might be in shape. And then what happens? You get injured. And that, I think, causes some animosity, caused some against him by the fan base because of that.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. But I mean, the only thing that I would say was somewhat of a knock on him was he played for a bunch of different teams. You know what I mean? Like he was a 1-year rental for a lot of teams.
Right.
And I guess if you really statistically looked back and said, where he was drafted, does that match his output? Probably not. But again, I don't. That doesn't bother me in the least bit because the 1 year he played in Baltimore, he was fantastic. And as I mentioned, the Ravens wanted him back, but we just didn't have the money to sign him, and he wanted to go back to Carolina. So could there be a reunion in the future for him here in Baltimore as he remains still out there? And I think the Ravens actually have shored up their accounting books to find some monies to be able to spend it.
Well, your prediction for the Orioles is pretty much coming true. They're looking up at the rest of the field right now, and they've got to spend a lot of money at the trading deadline or whatever because they've got a lot of young products that are so talented, and to see this talent wasted by not having any pitching, relief pitching, as well as starting pitching is just a travesty.
I mean, I watched. They swept the White Sox at home. Whoop-de-doo, but whatever. They won those 3 games. They beat a pretty good Seattle Mariners team last night in Seattle, first place team. George Kirby isn't having the season that he's probably used to, but Colton Cowser comes back, hits a home run. They actually scored, I think, 5 or 6 runs. So positive to see, but I don't know if the mountain to climb at this point is I'm assuming it's too tall. But Kobe Mayo's getting. Kobe Mayo comes up and he starts to play a little bit, and then Cedric Mullins was having a nice season. He gets hurt. Ryan Nowcastle, Jordan Westbrook. All these guys that were supposed to factor into this long-term solution to rebuild have been in and out. Tyler O'Neill. Look, at the end of the day, Mike Elias spent $73 million, and the majority of what he spent, I'm not sure what he was looking for. Kyle Gibson was a couple starts that didn't last, and he's cut. Sanchez, the backup catcher, he hasn't done anything. He's been hurt for the predominant. Tyler O'Neill signed a 3-year, $45 million contract. He's been on the IL at least twice, if not 3 times already this year. And that was the knock on him, that he wasn't going to stay healthy. The one thing that he did right, 2 things that he did right, Sagano's been fabulous. He pitched another gem last night for the $12 or $13 million they spent on him. Andrew Kittredge, although he was hurt early, has been a nice factor in our bullpen. And as I continue to say on the show, when you guys ask me kind of like, what are we listening to in Baltimore? Like, what's the pulse? What's happening here in terms of the fan base? What are people saying? I continue to watch some of the Orioles. I'm not as engaged this year as I have been in the past 3 seasons. But I think the question remains, which Orioles stay, which Orioles go? Will we be, immense sellers at the deadline? I think that when we start talking about spending monies in 2026 and beyond, where does that money get spent? You have guys like Zach Eflin who make right now $18 million. I think a lot of this is going to be a game that gets played because, Mike Elias really likes his draft picks. And if you extend a qualifying offer to somebody and they decline and then someone signs them, then you get, I think it's a first round draft pick or something.
Supplemental, yeah.
Balance or whatever it's called. I'll liken it to the fact that you get, like in football, you get a compensatory pick. It's baseball's version of it. Just falls in that sandwich between rounds 1 and 2. Cedric Mullins, I heard you guys talking about the Philadelphia Phillies pitcher, Abel. I think Cedric Mullins is one of those guys that's being targeted by a lot of different people to shore up their outfield as a veteran, former 30-30 guy. Really track the ball in the outfield, plays a definite plus all-star, defensive position, speedy on the base pass. A team like Philadelphia, I think, would be a nice fit for a guy like Cedric Mullins. Unfortunately, I like him. I think he's a fabulous center fielder, but I don't know that the Baltimore Orioles are going to money in the offseason to him. I think Ryan Mountcastle is another version of that. When you have, Ryan O'Hearn is another one. Ryan O'Hearn, was a cast-off. The Orioles picked him up for cast.
I like him.
He's, in my opinion, he's one of the leaders in the clubhouse. He's hitting 340. He plays a good defensive first base. He can play the outfield. He's pretty fast for a big guy. He's not a base stealer, but he gets down first base, pretty solid. But I think he's kind of one of the glue factors that have held us together in this clubhouse through a very difficult start, a lot of injuries, and some really poor off-season maneuvers. Sedano, as I mentioned, we got him on a one-year rental for $13 million. He's 35 years old. What do you do with that? Are you going to sign him for another year? Is this, so there's a lot of question marks that I think Roger crop into that.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask about Charlie Morton. We were talking to Doug Fernandez about him, and he's 42 years old. I look at him, I hard to believe he was born 3 years after my youngest daughter. But is he on? He's not on the IR. It appears.
No. He's pitched it. He started his first. What was he? He was 0-7, I think, to start the season, and then they moved him to the bullpen. He wound up bridging the gap in a lot of these games as a long guy or a mop-up guy. He started to figure out and pitched like 2 or 3 consecutive sessions pretty well in terms of trying to command his fastball, which still has nice life to it. His curveball is his kind of out pitch that has not been located very well, and it doesn't have the same spin rate that it's had in the past. Mm-hmm. So it's not as deceiving to a lot of these hitters who were barreling this guy up, and that's kind of how he got started, so poorly. But his last 2 or 3 starts, he's really pitched well. I think he's won both, if not all 3. I can't remember if he's 2-7 or 3-7, but something happened. Something's been found. I think it's. I don't know if this is, as a Baltimore fan, what I would call a very false sense of hope that all of a sudden we've got some splendid performances from Charlie Morton, from Sagano, from Dean Kramer, from Zach Eflin, and we'll see what Cade Povich can come up with tonight. But they've looked better if you look at their last 10 games, they really have looked significantly better. I just am uncertain as a fan of the direction of this club, because Tony Mansolino, to me, he used to be their third base coach, who's now the interim coach. That guy sounds like, when he goes through the interviews, he sounds like he is an absolute wet dish rag. There's no spine. And I'll actually go back and say this too, because I think Brandon Hyde is a good baseball man, and I think
I thought he did a commendable job.
He was wet nurse to a team who had zero talent, and then he endured the crummy years, and all of a sudden obviously we turned the corner. But the one knock I have on Brandon Hyde is his teams are so soft. They are soft as shit. If you watched the White Sox game, Kobe Mayo, he ran out of the baseline and kind of knocked into that guy when he was going to second base, and it was the White Sox second baseman, and he came back and he kind of got in Kobe Mayo's face, and Mayo picked up his helmet that had come off, and he shoved the guy out of the way, and then both benches cleared. And here I am clapping and hooting and hollering. I'm like, thank God somebody finally has a pair of balls that they can actually do something. Like, like we have Yankees when that whole Aaron Judge thing happened, and I forget who it was that hit him in the hand, blah blah blah, and then they threw back at us. I'm like, I want a team that shows some fight. I want a team that has a pulse to them. And I think under the Hyde and Manzolino regimes, that's like under Buck Showalter, the Orioles were nasty. You know what I mean? Like they played baseball hard and the way it was supposed to be played. Under Hyde and Manzolino, it is a puppet show. I mean, they're soft.
Well, that was the complaint against the Phillies by the fans last week after Harper got hit by Strider. And he's been hit a number of times in Braves games, and they wanted them to pay back the Braves the next game.
Well, that's an unwritten rule in baseball. That's how it works. I can tell you, I think it was my freshman year, we played Temple University. We were winning, and then we weren't. And they hit a home run, and I remember distinctly hearing my coach say, "Everybody up on the top step." And at the time, I didn't know what that meant. That's not a brand of baseball that I had understood. And so our pitcher hit the next guy, and then both benches cleared, and we had people got hurt and spiked and punched and all these different things. And here they go. They send me into right field. They got the winning run on second base. Ball gets hit through the first and second base gap. I come in, right field, scoop it up. I make a perfect one-hop throw to the catcher. He tags the guy, and he knocks the ball free, and we lose.
Oh. Who was that was when Temple was really good in baseball before they shut it down. And who was that coach?
I don't. It was 1993. I can tell you.
I forget now.
He was an assistant for Harry Litwack. Was a great baseball coach, and they had some really good baseball players.
They had a really crummy field, I can tell you that, because I heard good shots. I was there.
Yeah, well, that was in North Philly. You're exactly right. That was right down the street from the school.
LaSalle.
No question.
You want to talk about a dump? How about LaSalle? I mean, there's I was like a bomb shelter drill when we were on our bus driving through there to get to LaSalle. I buried my head between my legs. I'm not sure what's going to happen here.
North Philly, my boy. North Philly.
No, thank you. It's about as good as Southeast D.C., brother.
The money wasn't allocated by the athletic director for field competition.
Hey,
wherever the grass grew, that's where you looked at it.
It was probably Title IX. We probably needed some more gymnastics rings or something.
You know what? That's exactly what it was, Doug.
Hey, listen, let me tell you, they're cutting sports all the time now. I mean, it's unfortunate. There just isn't. I mean, the travel expenses when you get into these leagues. I forget who was talking about it the last couple of weeks now, and you're talking about even the Big Ten. You're talking about going to UCLA or and you got a football team, and you're traveling probably 75 people plus coaching staffs and trainers. That's it's expensive to do any of this stuff.
More than half the time.
Oh, absolutely. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy what they're doing. And so that's why they're trying to do what Villanova did, and I think very intelligently 20 years ago, and that was, hey, we're going to be a Division I team. We're not going to be a Division I team. And we're going to play teams in close proximity to where we are, and we're going to have a good schedule, and we're going to have a chance to go into a tournament and win. And they did exactly what they said.
Yeah.
And even when the Big East tried everything in the world to get them to come back into the Big East, 3 years ago, Roger? Yeah. They said, absolutely not. We're not getting involved in that. And they're right. They're right. Those schools can't do it.
That's right.
Don, let's shift gears. I think you're a horse guy. Let's talk about the Belmont.
Oh yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
Anticipated rematch, my boy. Journalism is going to be right there.
Maybe. Listen, a lot of these owners and trainers, with probably justified too, would complain that, I mean, when we talk about winning the Triple Crown, like that is a gauntlet because you're running 3 races in a short amount of time that normally you wouldn't do. I think you're talking about journalism. A couple things I think are true at Belmont. It's the longest of the 3 races. It's the last race, and if you
hold it a minute. You're exactly right. In the past, the race is run at Saratoga. It is not a 1.5-mile race like it would be when the new Belmont opens up, which is still a year and a half away. Then they'll go back to and what they're trying to do is to have a meeting of the runners of the Preakness. They're never going to change the Derby, so they got to forget about anything to do with the Derby. But what they're trying to do is get the Preakness moved back further, and then the Belmont moved back to like the 4th of July, and run the 3 races at the Triple Crown. But right now, Saratoga, it's a much shorter race. It's not like going 1.5 miles at Belmont.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm misinformed because I thought I read something that said it was still 1.5 miles.
No, not 1.5 miles. Absolutely not.
Because what I was seeing was statistics from like the last 34 years that suggested your stalking type running types or your best options at the Belmont,
right?
The Belmont race, and then also the post positions. Usually somewhere between the first 3, 4, and 5, like those post positions are typically, depending on your running style. But
there's only 8 horses going. Only 8. They're in a situation now where, post position, you're going to make a great deal of difference.
Well, 2 of those horses probably don't belong even in the race.
Oh well, that's always the case.
I mean, so I think it's Baeza. I think is the value pick right now. It's 4-1. People seem to like that. I think you're going to see. Rodriguez and I think what's it called, Crudo or whatever. Those are going to be your pace setters. The problem typically in the Belmont is that your closing horses have a difficult time, which would be Sovereignty, which actually skips the Preakness, and Journalism. I think is going to have a tough time running this many races. So I like Sovereignty. I like Baeza, and then we'll see what happens after that. I haven't placed. I mean, in terms of what I think I'm going to bet, I haven't done any of that yet, but I like those 2 horses.
Well, Rodriguez is 6-1 on the early line, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
What's coming out of the number 1? What's it called? Hill something?
Hill Road.
There you go, Hill Road. Now
10 to 1.
Irad Ortiz is my favorite jockey, and that's your rider. I just don't know that much about that horse. I mean, a lot of these horses. When you talk about the road to the Kentucky Derby, they're winning grade 2 or grade 3 stakes races, which are great, but that's a major jump when you start talking about winning, a grade 1 stakes race that gets you to the Kentucky Derby. I think, right, not a lot of these horses have been in that kind of, talent.
Correct.
In fact, there's one horse that on Preakness Day that Journalism won. Ran 3 races earlier in like the undercard and won. So,
well, you got this particular race now. It is a $2 million race, and the winner gets $1.2 million. It's a big time race, even though they're racing at Saratoga and they're calling it the Belmont. And as they point out, everybody points out, everybody wants the Triple Crown. Everybody wants to have the opportunity to see. But they can't do it because horses that win the Kentucky Derby don't want to come back 2 weeks later. They want to wait. And so that's what's going to happen from now on unless they can change the dates.
Listen, I'm all for health and safety and trying to keep these horses in the upright position. But it does make you wonder how, over the annals of time, now we had a very large gap, with the early horses. You had a bunch of different Triple Crown winners, and then you didn't have anybody, and then you had,
right.
Was it Justified and Justify rather, and then I forget there was one like a year or 2 after that. But I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, I don't know. How do we feel? It's the same conversation that we can have that suggests, baseball players of yesteryear used to set records in 154 games or 100 and whatever. Like how to
Right.
You're talking about football now. Okay, well it's 17, whatever it is, 17 weeks. Right. Okay. So if you're a 1,000-yard rusher, like what did he do? Like you got, you know what I mean? Like, go back to like Jim Brown and like Earl Campbell and whomever else that were doing it in 12 weeks. You know what I mean?
Correct. But the problem with racing is, it has been, the money's not in the racing. I mean, the money is not winning the one. Well, it's good to win the one,
Right.
2.1 million or whatever it's going to be, and to win a race. But at the same time, the money's in the breeding. And your horse wins the Kentucky Derby. You're not worried about bringing it back in 2 weeks to run it in the free.
That's 100% right, because one of the horses in this race is Justify's son. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, here, let me give you the post, okay? Because I pulled it up. Hill Road.
Yep.
Post 1, Sovereignty in number 2, Rodriguez 3, Uncaged 4,
Yep.
Trudeau 5, Beza 6, Journalism 7, and Heart of Honor 8. There you go.
So
That's the 8.
So when you watch this race, when that gate opens, you're going to have Rodriguez and Crudo are going to set your pace. They're going to run directly out in the front with a lot of those horses being stalkers, and you're going to have probably Sovereignty and Journalism. They're going to hang behind your stalkers, and then once they get to that last post, they're going to ask. The jockey's going to whip, and they're going to ask. And whether they get there or not is the question, because I don't know how much gas in the tank Journalism still has. So that's why I like Baeza. I think Sovereignty will be there. It's a little fresher because it skipped the Preakness, and I'm not sure who my number 3 is going to be.
Okay, it's going to be an interesting race. It really is. As I say, the one thing when you go to the Preakness is you got to remember the narrow turns, and a lot of horses that have the lead early on have an advantage. So now Saratoga is a little bit more spread out, so you have a better chance to come from behind at Saratoga. But the difference being that the horses that come from behind aren't going to have a long enough race to get where they want to go.
Right. Well, and that's, do you ask them earlier, or do you let them? I mean, I think the other concept is that they're talking about thunderstorms, and I think that's going to favor some different horses with regard to a different style of track. There's a lot of horses, I used to go to Charlestown when I was, growing up. It's a dump, but nonetheless, I mean, when you have a sloppy track, there's a lot of horses that don't like getting the mud and goop splashed in their face. They just don't like it.
Well, Kentucky Derby was that way this year.
So, when you have a pace setter and he runs out to the front, well, he's not looking at any horse's rear end, you know what I mean, at that point in time. So he doesn't have to worry about getting anything splashed in his face. So, it's a little different.
Tick, tick, tock, tick, tick, tock.
Tick, tick, tock.
Oh, Frank, tell me we're out of time, so we'll let Frank close it. Our executive producer, Frank Carroll. Doug, thank you very, very much. Never got to the golf today, but we'll get to that next week. Big tournament next week. Roger, always a pleasure. Take over, Frank.
Great week. Take care. God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, these programs are brought to you each and every night of the week in grateful appreciation to the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, the men and women police and fire services. When you're out there and you see somebody in uniform, please make sure you know they're there. Excuse me. These programs are dedicated to those who've lost their lives in the line of duty. Deputy Robert Anthony Carroll, Patrolman David Curtis, Patrolman Jeffrey Yazowitz, Patrolman Jeffrey Colcap, Sergeant Thomas Batinger, San Diego Officer Mike Hendler, Sergeant Tom Wilson, Charlotte County Sheriff's Department, Detective Randy Bell, Detective Ricky Childers, Patrolman Charlie Condit, Tarpon Springs Police Department, Deputy Chief Mike Godwin, Philadelphia Fire Department, Lieutenant Joyce Craig Lewis, Philadelphia Fire Department, Sergeant James O'Connor, Philadelphia Police Department, Sergeant Chris Levake, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant Mike Zerba, Newcastle County Police, Patrolman Ornafo Crispin, Lakeland PD, Deputy Josh Meyer, Nassau County Sheriff's Department, Captain Matt Letourneau, Philadelphia Fire Department, Captain Chris Leach, Wilmington Fire Department, Lieutenant Ardith Hope, Wilmington Fire Department, Lieutenant Jerry Ficus, Wilmington Fire Department, Chief Al Hogle, Longboat Key Police Department, Chief Jimmy Ford, Wilmington Fire Department, Deputy Mike Hargrove, Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, Patrol, Trooper Chelsea Richards, Florida Highway Patrol. Trooper Joe Bullock, Florida Highway Patrol. Trooper Zachary Ben, Florida Highway Patrol. Sergeant Chris Fitzgerald, Philadelphia Police Department. Sergeant Ramon Mendez, Philadelphia Police Department. Chief Corey Compartier, Buffalo Creek Fire Department. Deputy Ronnie Rodnitsky, Manatee County Sheriff's Department. Patrolman Chris Levake, Virginia Beach Police Department, and Patrolman Carmen Vena of Virginia Beach Police Department. My brothers and sisters, although you may be 10-7 at this point in time, at some time we'll be 10-10 at the table of the Lord. Until that time, may the roads rise up to meet you. May the winds be always at your back. May the rains fall softly on your fields, and the sun shine light on your face. Until we meet again, may the good Lord keep you and your family always in the palm of his hands. Good night, God bless, and have a great week.